What happened to us?
Maybe we stopped looking for the light.
Sorry about that. The Last of Us Part 2. Critics love it, Twitter hates it, and no matter what I say about it, I'm gonna get hate, so I might as well just not say anything. Okay, thanks for watching. Okay, jokes aside, this is probably one of the most divisive games ever made. You just have to look at the difference between the critic and user scores on Metacritic to see this game has a lot of people pretty fucking mad. I mean, you make a sequel to one of the most critically acclaimed games of all time and you're gonna get a lot of people picking it apart, but it seems like many fans are especially disappointed in the story, the protagonists, and the large amounts of gameplay. But what do I think? Well, at the risk of sounding like a milquetoast, middle-of-the-road, fence-sitting toad, I actually think it's alright, but definitely very flawed. It makes some big stumbles in the story department, and definitely wears thin after a while, but there's also a lot to admire, and personally, I think to call this game a total failure would be pretty unfair and completely neglect the game's many strengths. But still, let's just jump right into the thick of this bitch, you know what I mean. Spoilers for the thing that's probably already been spoiled for you by now, but let's talk about Abby. I don't think I've ever seen a video game character more hated on the internet than Abby. Like, if Micah Bell fucked Ashley Graham and they had a kid that cried like baby Mario, that would be weird. And also I forgot where I was going with this. But if you're not in the know, basically the story of The Last of Us Part 2 is about Abby murdering Joel, the protagonist of the first game, with a golf club, which is pretty forked up. It's too soon. It's too soon for that. So the first half of the game is about Ellie hunting Abby down, and the second half is about what Abby was doing in the meantime. Now, it seems like a lot of people feel like the game was ruined by killing off Joel, having to play as Abby, and the ending, which I'll get to later. But here's what I think. Yes, Abby kinda sucks. No, I don't think she single-handedly ruins the entire game. Yes, she does look like Senator Armstrong, and yes, that's sexy as shit. Like, I get why people hate her. I really do. I mean, if you make a character kill the protagonist of one of the most beloved games of all time, and then make us play as that killer for half of the game, then you better bust out of your shell, cause clearly you're a fucking nut! But if you can eventually look past that, I don't actually think she's that bad of a character otherwise. I mean, yes, she's brutish, stubborn, and nearly kills a pregnant woman at one point, and it's getting progressively harder to make jokes about this shit. But she also has many moments of compassion, humor, relatability. Like, she's not great or anything, I just don't think she's bad enough to spoil the entire rest of the game. Especially because there were elements of the story that I really enjoyed, like the great subtle world building and the spectacular performances from basically all the voice actors. Like, I may not love Abby, but Laura Bailey is a fucking queen, my guy. And as for the ending, yeah, it's pretty fucking underwhelming. Last chance to leave now if you haven't finished the game, but basically Ellie nearly kills Abby but ends up sparing her, after which she goes home and discovers that her partner has left her and taken their baby. And honestly, I totally agree that this shit is fucking dumb. I mean, I was expecting the ending to be bleak, but there's gotta be at least some kind of silver lining when you pull this kind of shit. Here it's just everything sucks, you're totally alone, and 2 of your fingers got yeeted off, so you can't even play Freebird anymore. But like I said, this game still has plenty of redeeming qualities. For example, this is one of those games where you can really see the amount of work that was put in. There's just so much attention to detail in the environments, the characters, the doggy fetch mechanics. There's so many cute dogs in this game. Everywhere you go in this game looks and feels polished, meticulous, and in my opinion, really helps with drawing you into the game's world. And the gameplay feels really polished too. I mean, yeah, a lot of it is just walking, looting, and yeah, you get it. But the encounters are actually really interesting. I think the game does a great job of balancing third-person shooting, stealth, and survival in a way that lets you approach each fight in many different ways. Plus, they're usually pretty challenging, the melee combat is especially really satisfying, and take fucking notes, boomers. This is how you do tag-alongs in video games. Useful, doesn't get in your way, and you can't accidentally kill them. See, watch. It's definitely not perfect. Like I said, there's tons of time wasting, and the fights can feel a bit samey after a while, but overall, I'd say the gameplay is definitely a win. However, there's one big, fat, dumpy question about all this that I'm sure you're thinking, and that question is, how the fuck did Tommy survive this? Like, that's crazy! And that question is, if The Last of Us Part 2 is meant to be a story-based game, and the story sucks, doesn't that make all the other stuff irrelevant? Well, that's a decent question. Like I said, I personally don't think the story is that bad. Yes, Abby's very flawed, and yes, the game's about a Far Cry 5 on the shitty ending-ometer, as you can see there. But there were also plenty of moments in the story that I really enjoyed, like the flashbacks with Joel, the chemistry between Ellie and Dina, the many interesting moments that were tense, heartwarming, thought-provoking. And you may say none of that matters because of Abby, or the ending, or whatever you thought ruined the game, but personally, I still think this game has a lot to offer. It's flawed, messy, and some would argue completely pointless, but I still think there's a lot to admire about The Last of Us Part 2. So love it, hate it, play it, don't play it, whatever. I'm sick of hearing about it by now, so I'm gonna go play more Animal Crossing.